150 phones lit up at my father's graveside, and my stepmother's champagne glass shattered across his headstone. She'd invited the homicide detectives herself, convinced they were about to arrest me. She didn't know the QR code she was so proud of was already loading her own confession onto every screen. 6 months before that, my father sat me down in his study and slid a laptop and a folded piece of paper across the desk. Domains, hosting accounts, cloud storage logins, all of it. You're the only one I trust with the family's digital legacy, he said. Promise me you'll keep it safe, Ryan. I laughed it off. My dad had never changed his own Wi-Fi password in his life, and now he wanted me holding the keys to everything he owned online. I figured it was sentiment, a man wanting his affairs in order. I tucked the paper in a drawer and forgot about it. 3 weeks later, he started getting sick. Not flu sick, not hospital sick, at first. Just tired, in a way that didn't add up for a man who still played 18 holes every Saturday. The doctors ran test after test and found nothing conclusive, just a heart failing faster than it should. Within 2 months, he was gone. My sister Claire and I were still numb with grief when the will reading happened. Vanessa, my father's wife of 4 years, 31 years younger than him, placed a freshly notarized document on the lawyer's desk. 100% of the estate. $8 million. The house, the business, everything. Claire and I got nothing. Not a dollar. Not even Dad's watch, the one thing I'd asked him about months earlier, half joking. He'd said, "It's yours, don't worry about it." "This has to be a mistake," Claire whispered, gripping my arm hard enough to leave marks. It wasn't a mistake. It was airtight. Signed, witnessed, notarized 6 weeks before he died. Vanessa played her part beautifully, black dresses, trembling hands at the funeral, holding court with my father's old business partners like she'd invented grief. Behind the scenes, she was already spending. She listed our childhood home within a month, started liquidating the manufacturing business my grandfather built from nothing, and donated Dad's golf clubs to charity before his ashes were even scattered, making sure a photographer caught her doing it. "Just let her have it," Claire said one night, exhausted, mascara streaked down her face. "I can't keep fighting people who think we're the greedy ones. It's not going to be over," I told her. "Not like this." Then Vanessa decided she needed a headstone worthy of a queen, $20,000, Italian marble, hand-carved, with a QR code laser engraved into the stone linking to a tribute website for the unveiling. 150 of Dad's old friends, business partners, even a state senator he'd donated to for years, were invited. She wasn't about to pay a professional for something beneath her. "You're good with computers," she told me, not quite meeting my eyes. "You'll build it. It's the least you can do for your father's memory." I built her tribute site with my jaw clenched so tight it ached for days. What she didn't know, what she never bothered to ask, was that the hosting account I logged into wasn't new, it was the one my father had handed me months earlier. His account, now legally mine, buried in a folder of passwords she never checked. I didn't know it yet, but 6 months later I'd be standing at that same grave watching everything she built come apart in her hands, because of the one detail she never verified, who actually owned the server her trap was sitting on. For a long while, it just got worse. Extended family sided with Vanessa almost instantly. She was better at performing loss than Claire and I were at surviving it. Invitations quietly stopped. An aunt told me, straight to my face, "Your father chose her, Ryan. Maybe it's time you accepted that instead of making everyone uncomfortable." I hired a probate lawyer anyway. He confirmed what I feared. The will was clean, signed, witnessed, notarized. Vanessa's attorney sent a letter within a week, warning that further harassment would result in a defamation suit. Now I wasn't just fighting for what my father intended for us. I was fighting to stay out of a courtroom myself. Then Vanessa went nuclear. 2 detectives showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday morning. A private physician, one Vanessa had personally retained, had reviewed my father's final months and flagged irregularities in his medication levels, enough to open a formal inquiry into whether someone had deliberately withheld his heart medication. "She's saying I did this?" I said, my voice cracking somewhere between disbelief and rage. "She's saying I killed my own father." "We have to follow up on every report," the older detective said, not unkindly. I saw it in his eyes anyway. He wasn't ruling me out. That night, Vanessa called. I almost didn't answer. "Walk away," she said, low and controlled, like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "Drop the lawyer, sign the release, and this all goes away. Fight me, and you'll spend the next few years explaining yourself to a jury instead of building a life." "You can't be serious," I said. "Try me," she hissed, and hung up. I sat in my car for 20 minutes without moving. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear anymore, but from something colder. Something that felt like clarity. That night I logged into the tribute site's back end. My father's old cloud account, the one nobody remembered, was still mine, looking for anything that might clear my name. Buried in the storage was a folder the system had auto-synced months earlier, a backup from Vanessa's iPad, connected once to my home Wi-Fi the day she'd asked me to fix her printer. I opened it. Everything changed. The first thing I found was Ring camera footage, quietly backed up months before. Vanessa, letting a man in through the side door at 1 in the morning, week after week, while my father slept upstairs, bedridden. I recognized him instantly, her personal trainer, Derek, the same one she'd been photographed with at the gym for a wellness feature in the local paper. Claire nearly cried with relief. "This is it," she said. "Undue influence, infidelity, the whole thing. We can get the will thrown out." For about 6 hours, I actually believed we'd won. That's when the real bombshell dropped. While pulling timestamps off the footage for our lawyer, I noticed other files in that same folder I'd scrolled past the first time: notes entries, Safari history exported as backup, a spreadsheet labeled, almost innocently, household. I opened the spreadsheet first. It wasn't a budget. It was a log, dates, timestamps, dosage notes tracking my father's heart medication schedule, cross-referenced against searches about how certain medications interact, and how a heart already weakened by illness could be pushed past its limit without showing up on a routine test. The searches started vague, almost curious, for months before he died. By his final 2 weeks, they'd narrowed into something clinical, something cold. The affair wasn't the story. The affair was cover. While the family noticed Vanessa's late nights with Derek, she'd spent those same months quietly making sure my father's heart gave out on a schedule that worked for her. I sat on my bedroom floor until the sun came up, staring at that spreadsheet, feeling something in my chest cave in and rebuild itself harder. Claire wanted to go straight to the detectives that morning. I stopped her. "If we hand this over now, it's just synced backup files, not forensic originals," I said. "Any decent defense lawyer tears that apart in 10 minutes. The second she suspects we have this, she wipes that iPad remotely. We lose everything. So what do we do?" Claire asked. "Just wait, while she's telling the world I let you kill him." "We don't just wait," I said. "We build something she can't talk her way out of." I thought about the one thing Vanessa was already planning that would put every important person in her life in the same place, phones in hand, the gravestone unveiling. I secured a full copy of everything to a homicide detective my father's business had worked with for years, someone I trusted, and asked him to hold it until I gave the signal. Then I spent months doing nothing that looked like anything, showing up to family events I was still invited to, letting Vanessa believe she'd won completely. Quietly, I made sure the hosting account, the domain, the entire digital foundation of her tribute site, stayed locked under credentials only I controlled. The ceremony arrived on a warm Saturday afternoon in October, 150 guests in black, folding chairs across the cemetery lawn, a local news crew Vanessa had personally invited to cover a widow's tribute. The state senator sat in the front row. Vanessa stood at the headstone in a designer black dress, dabbing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, and gave a speech about a love the world would never understand, her voice trembling right on cue. Then she turned to the crowd, smiling. "Please," she said, gesturing at the marble, "take out your phones. Scan the code. See the tribute we built for him, together." 150 phones came up at once. 10 minutes earlier, I'd logged in and redirected the QR code from her tribute page to a new address. When the crowd scanned it, their screens didn't load a slideshow of family photos and soft piano music. They loaded a page titled, "The Black Widow," auto-playing the Ring footage of Derek slipping through that side door, time-stamped and dated, followed by screenshots of the medication spreadsheet and search history, device ID visible in the corner of every image. The murmur that went through the crowd turned into gasps within seconds. Someone near the back said, "Oh my God," loud enough to carry across the lawn. Vanessa's champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered against the base of the headstone she'd paid $20,000 for. "This is a lie," she screamed, spinning toward me, her voice cracking into something shrill and ugly. "This is doctored, this is." "The detectives already have the originals," I whispered, close enough that only she could hear it. "I sent them months ago." That's when I saw them moving through the crowd from the parking lot, the same homicide detectives who had questioned me in my own apartment. As they closed in, my father's longtime attorney, a quiet man named Whitfield who'd known him for 30 years, stepped up beside me and pressed a sealed envelope into my hands. "Your father asked me to hold this," he said. "He told me to give it to you only if that tribute site ever went live." Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before he died. "Ryan, if you're reading this, it means she went through with it, and it means I was right to be afraid. I'd suspected for months that something wasn't right, and started keeping my own notes quietly, in case I never got the chance to say this out loud. I gave you the keys to everything not just because I was being sentimental, son, though I was that too. I gave them to you because I knew she'd eventually build something public, something she'd be proud of, and I needed you holding the switch when she did finish what I couldn't. I hadn't outsmarted Vanessa. My father had, months before he even knew for certain he wouldn't survive to see it through. I was just the one who pulled the trigger he'd already loaded. Derek made it about 15 feet toward the parking lot before 3 guests tackled him into the grass, his phone crushed underneath him. Vanessa didn't run. She stood frozen over the shattered glass and the fresh dirt as a detective pulled her arms behind her back and clicked the handcuffs shut, reciting the words she'd hoped would be read to me instead. The story was everywhere by nightfall, filmed from a dozen angles by the same guests she'd invited to admire her performance. Because I'd handed detectives a clean, properly preserved evidence package months earlier, none of it got thrown out on a technicality. Derek cooperated within 48 hours for a lighter charge, which told you everything about how far his loyalty actually went. Under the Slayer rule, a spouse convicted of causing their partner's death forfeits any inheritance from them. Every dollar of that $8 million came back to Claire and me, along with the house and the business our grandfather had built with his own hands. I never took the tribute site down. I just changed the redirect one final time. Now, if you scan the code on my father's headstone, you don't get a slideshow, and you don't get a scandal. You get a single page, titled Justice, holding the court filings, the conviction, and the ruling that gave us our father's legacy back. He asked me to keep the family's digital legacy safe. I like to think this is exactly what he meant. So here's what I still ask myself. Was letting her unveil her own guilt in front of 150 guests justice, or was it revenge wearing justice's clothes? Would you have handed everything straight to the detectives the moment you found that spreadsheet, or would you have waited too, just to watch her hand herself the ending she deserved?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.